Hello and welcome to another Let's Read video. This episode we're reading the December 1999 issue of Expert Gamer. This was the second Expert Gamer that I worked on in my career. And I was going to say when we started the video that this was the first one that I worked on while I lived in Chicago or in Lombard or Oak Brook, which is where the Ziff Davis offices were actually located back then. But as I sort of thought about publishing lead times, even though this issue would have come out probably late October at the earliest, early November at the latest, because that's how issues were numbered and dated back then. You can see it says December 1999 here. I didn't actually move in to Chicago until very late October. So the work I did on this issue was actually done at home. So remember, if you watched the previous episode, and I hope you did, and if not, please go check it out. So Expert Gamer number 65 was the first issue I was in, and I mentioned that I had been flown in to do like a 1 week strategy guide for Final Fantasy VI, not as a freelancer, but I'd been flown in to the office to do that for like a week, maybe a week and a half. And I had been working on something else at home while I was waiting for my work visa to clear and everything like that. So anyway, this is the issue that I was working on while I was at home, waiting for the visa to clear, looking for an apartment, and generally getting ready to move. So I'll talk about that a little bit while we're in here. But anyway, yeah. So this is Expert Gamer number 66, the second issue I worked on, third issue I was ever in of anything outside of a website. And let's just take a quick look at this cover. So, of course, I think last issue was Dino Crisis. So then here we are with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Obviously, these Capcom survival horror games were huge at the time. And Resident Evil was kind of the granddaddy. Not really, but it was the one that made it. It was the series that sort of made survival horror popular, at least in North America. Over 2,000 tricks this issue. Oh, you'll also see I've added a wonderful high-tech alignment system here to try to stay in camera because I can't see the feed while I'm recording this. So hopefully we stay in. I'm recording this with a newer phone than last time, so hopefully it's a little more legible. I'm just using natural light because I don't have a lighting system down here, so hopefully we won't see a lot of glare and the light stays, although the clouds are coming in. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I don't have a lot of experience with Resident Evil games, but there we go. I mentioned, I think, last episode too, that this was the time where Pokemon was massively popular. I mean, it still is, but it was like the Game Boy games were still super popular in the late 90s. And we had been sort of given a directive to make sure we got Pokemon, especially Pikachu, on the cover as much as possible. So here he is, Pikachu, Pokemon Special Pikachu Edition. This is actually pretty legit because there is a strategy guide in here for Pokemon Yellow. Jet Force Gemini, rare game for the N64, also huge. And of course, our editor-in-chief, John Riccardi, was a big Nintendo fan, is a big Nintendo fan. I think he was a big Rare fan at the time too, so that makes sense. And Grandia, full walkthrough, and this is what I had actually worked on for this issue. Also, Resident Evil 2 N64, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and Metal Gear Solid VR missions. This issue is packed. When you consider that, official strategy guides were big business back then. This is, of course, GameFAQs existed, but it wasn't as big as it is now, or it became. Having a monthly magazine with strategy guides was normal, and there was us and tips and tricks basically. And it really, as I was sort of prepping for this, it really hit me how we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 full strategy guides in here for games that aren't tiny. Like, none of these are small games. Grandia itself is like a 70 to 80 hour RPG. And I think, like it says Marvel vs. Capcom New DC Tricks, I think there might be a fighting game guide in here too. And of course, we still have page upon page of just general tricks in here. So really impressive when you look at it now, considering you could also buy full strategy guides that were pretty big at the time. Opening up to the inside cover, we've got Roadsters, which was a Titus game for the N64. Racing game. Racing games had a renaissance going on, which they kind of had again, to be honest. They have had again. I had never played this before I was ready to record this or ready to review this magazine, so I actually went back and played a little bit of it. You know, it's not bad. I'm not a Titus fan. I never have been. I didn't think they made very good games. But, you know, this is not terrible, to be honest. I was really enjoying it to the point that, like, I had played it more than enough, and I didn't need to keep playing, and here I was still playing. 30 Dream convertibles with multiple engine configurations and modifiable parts, 4 different game styles, plus instant replay, because that was exciting at the time, too. And yeah, the changing weather conditions were the thing that kind of caught me. It was like, wow, feels pretty advanced for an N64 racing game from 1999 from Titus. Another 2-page ad, Metal Gear Solid VR missions. Of course, this is covered in this issue. This ad's okay. Metal Gear Solid VR missions was obviously very opportunistic. Metal Gear Solid was a huge game, and it was just like, how do we wring more out of this long-running series that has now finally become a thing? VR missions was fun, but it didn't scratch the itch for me personally. I was a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, and I wanted more than just a bunch of quick challenge missions. So, it was pretty good. Now, before we get into the editorial over here, I would like to point out, last issue, I think I went on a pretty lengthy commentary about how disappointing it was, especially when Sega got to the Dreamcast. Sega being known and being very sort of groundbreaking and trailblazing when it came to video game advertising. Of course, that was one of the reasons why I think personally that the Genesis was so popular in North America, was that Sega and the ad group they used, which I can't remember now what the name was, that came up with the Sega Screen. But even before that, not only were they the first to do like comparison ads, well, they weren't the first, but they did it very effectively, because I think Intellivision did that back in the late 70s, early 80s as well. But also just sort of, really tapped into the MTV generation, really made you excited about their games, even the games that actually weren't all that exciting. And, it really carried them. And then they kind of lost their way with the Saturn and that whole Theater of the Mind weirdness that they tried. And with the Dreamcast, they were generally good. But if you remember last issue, if you want to go look up the previous episode, these ads where they did these columns of images, I think Shenmue was one of the ones last time, they were tiny. Like the ribbon of images was probably about as wide as my 2 fingers here previously. And I had made a comment while we were reviewing that last issue, that it's like, you have the best looking console on the game when it comes to horsepower on the market at the time. Like, everything looked just as good as what you would see for like a PC accelerator game, like a 3DFX or something like that, like a 3DFX card on a PC, compared to like what else was on the market, which was N64, which looked decent, but was fuzzy and blurry and foggy, and PS1, which was really showing its age at this point. So, like, you're by far the best looking system on the market, and your print ads had these tiny little screenshots. So I think it's interesting that starting in this issue, that suddenly the screenshots are much bigger. Still the same ads, still the same layout, but much bigger, which I think is effective, because the Dreamcast marketing was really good. The It's Thinking thing was fantastic, and so they're really trading on this too. Which, unfortunately for you all, the the dumb fish are in other games. I brought a glass of water with me this time. Okay. Of course, playing on the It's Thinking thing. I never ever really played this. I knew so many people who owned this game, especially for the bass fishing controller. My good friend CJ had that controller. Looking over here at the editorial, written, of course, by John Riccardi, I thought was interesting. So I'm just going to read this. If you're a regular reader of Expert Gamer, you've probably noticed that the magazine has been in a constant form of evolution over the last few months. Although the most obvious changes have been of the visual kind, that doesn't mean we haven't been thinking about the content as well. While we'll never be fully satisfied with how the mag looks, there's always room for improvement. We are at least getting to a point where we feel comfortable enough to move toward the next important step in the evolution process, improving the content. Before you begin to wonder, no, we're not changing the focus of the mag. We thrive on bringing you the most in-depth strategies and tricks around, and as we head into the new millennium, it's only going to get better. However, we have been thinking long and hard about what we can do to make Expert Gamer an even better magazine, and once again, we'd like to call on you, the readers, the people who we make this mag for, to let us know what you want to see. In particular, I'm curious to hear more of your thoughts on the idea of XG doing previews of upcoming games. A lot of you have been asking us to cover future releases in some form, and while we're not going to do strategies or unreleased games, that'd be pretty useless, we're not against the idea of giving limited coverage to upcoming titles if it's something you really want to see, especially if doing so would give you a better idea of what games you'd like us to do blowout strategies for in future issues of XG. Ultimately, it's up to you. As I said before, this is your magazine. Keep sending those emails and letters to tell us what you think of the mag, as well as what you'd like to see in the future. In return, we'll keep busting our butts to bring it to you. Remember, as has been said so many times before in the pages of both this magazine and its sister publication, EGM, the only constant is change. So I think this is mostly alluding to, of course, Expert Gamer started as EGM2, which was the bi-weekly publication that there was Electronic Gaming Monthly, and then they made EGM2, which came out every other 2 weeks, right? So you had 2 week stretches between each issue. And it morphed into Expert Gamer, which is, of course, a strategy magazine. So I think there were a couple things here. I remember when I first got hired, I think even in my my job interview, this came up, or John might have just said it separately in a conversation later, that they were looking to possibly do previews in the magazine. And that was something that we were talking about for quite a while. And I don't remember, we did end up actually doing them in Expert Gamer, but I don't remember if they came in before I moved on. But of course, that would be a throwback to what the old EGM2 was. And of course, after a while, this magazine morphed into Game Now, which became a much more traditional style of news, reviews, previews magazine like EGM, but aimed at a younger crowd. But yeah, it was something that constantly came up, and I think I sort of referenced this in the last episode, where John was pretty newly minted as the editor-in-chief, and I don't know whether he ever said this to me, but it always seemed clear to me that part of it was that he was there to freshen the magazine up and take it into sort of its next phase. And one of the reasons why that is because, of course, our main competitor was Tips and Tricks, which I believe was published by the same company that published GamePro, which, of course, GamePro was one of EGM's biggest competitors. And if I remember correctly, we consistently lost the battle with them month to month as far as sales go. I don't know about subscriptions, but as far as like newsstand sales go, I'm pretty sure Expert Gamer was always second behind Tips and Tricks. Tips and Tricks was a juggernaut. So I think that's the reason why we were in there. Anyway, moving on. The XG staff, this was a scary month for Andy. After completing Spyro 2, he had a huge helping of Force Gemini added to his plate. In the office-wide Soul Calibur tourney, he placed a respectable 6th. His claim to fame is being the only player to double perfect an opponent. It was up to Che and Shu to teach him humility, though now he's just counting the days until the new Zelda comes out. Andy had a big workload in this issue, Force Gemini and Spyro 2. Neither of those are small games. And I get the feeling that Force Gemini might have come in a little bit late. I think it's interesting, and you will see this further into the magazine as well. And this was something that I think Dan Shu came in and really sort of cured us of by the time I move over to EGM, which is he's referencing Che and Shu here. Now, if you're a big classic video game nerd who read these magazines back in the day, you probably know who that is. Che is, of course, Che Chow, who he's a big esports guy at Ubisoft now. But he was an EGM editor for quite a long time. And, of course, Shu is Dan Shu, who would go on. At this point, he was an editor at EGM, and then there was sort of a mass, everyone left for OneUp.com, or Gamers.com, sorry. And then he came back as the editor-in-chief of EGM. But there's no reference to who those people are here. Like, they're mentioned, and we realized this was supposed to be sort of laid back and casual. But this is something that, as an editor, personally, I hated, or I came to hate, where it was like, we're referencing people that we know who they are, and maybe our hardest of hardcore fans knew who they are, but who the hell are Che and Shu? You know what I mean? So, anyway, whatever. Dan Leahy, show me the money, baby. Dan took on the persona of Mr. Vegas in the city of high rollers. His luck and his money quickly left, however, when he tried his hand in high-stakes Soul Calibur. Still, he's determined not to be known as just a sports dude and has brighter Soul Cali days ahead. Dan's also looking forward to sunny DC sports gaming with NBA 2K, NHL 2K, and baseball all on the way. So Dan was our sports guy, and actually referencing EGM, he was part of the sports team. I don't know if it's called a team EGM. I might, maybe because I'm reading an issue of Game Fan lately, and I think Game Fan did Team Game Fan as well. But he was one of the guys we always brought in to do sports game coverage. Jim Mazurek. Jim spent nearly half of his month setting up the office-wide Soul Calibur tournament, only to be denied in the semifinals by a staffer from the other mag. He promises to represent XG to the fullest in post-tournament play and not to allow the other mag to claim dominance. The trash talk is flying faster than ever, the betting is out of control, and the cheapest player will always win. Jim didn't like to lose. And he hated anything that weren't real games. Here's me with a terrible picture. The new guy kept up his RPG playing ways this month with a full walkthrough for SCEA's Grandia. The rest of Greg's time was pretty much devoted to an intensive apartment search, that and drooling over all the latest Gran Turismo 2 info coming in this month. Since he's truly a racer at heart, he's pumped about taking on Sega Rally 2 for the Dreamcast next month. So yeah, the next issue will be me covering Sega Rally 2. I can't remember if it's a Gran Turismo 2 cover, but I do remember not getting to do Gran Turismo 2 and being really bummed about that. And I remember John apologizing to me, but also pointing out it was Jim Mazurek who did it, who was kind of like our head guy as far as strategy goes. And he said, like, it makes sense. It's a flagship game. He's really our main guy. And I couldn't argue with that. That's absolutely true. Finally, Todd Zuniga, a.k.a. Adrian. Todd has hardly had a chance to revel in his success as the 5th best player in the office at Soul Calibur, though he hasn't won a match since. Immediately after the tournament, he was lost in the deep, dark depths of Pokemania and poured out a complete Pokemon Yellow strategy. He's been wandering out back with a potato sack, ensuring the entire office that he will, indeed, catch them all. So I kind of mentioned this last issue as well. Todd was not an RPG guy, and I think last issue he covered Suikoden 2, and now this issue he's covering Pokemon, and he was absolutely not a Pokemon guy. But he was just very versatile, I guess. He could do everything. Looking at the editorial staff here, you notice Crispin Boyer is in here as special thanks, and he shows up in the issue later. He was also an EGM editor. Also notice Henry Lapierre, who I don't know where he is now, but that's a name that I seem to remember hearing a lot back in the day. And Henry, I don't know, maybe you watch this stuff and you can tell me where you're at now. But anyway, also I was thinking about last night, there's another name on here. Where is it? Tim Davis, layout and design. So I watched the original The Fast and the Furious last night with my daughter. First time she saw it. And I remember the car that Brian drives in The Fast and the Furious was a green, for the first half anyway, a green Mitsubishi Eclipse. And I desperately wanted one of those. And when I moved to, well, actually, obviously Fast and the Furious wasn't out yet. But when I moved to Chicago, Tim Davis had one, and it was the best car ever. I loved that car. I never did buy one, but I love that car. I do have some pictures that I'll try to put up on the screen of my actual apartment and moving in day. Again, when I wrote this, I hadn't moved in yet, but I did during this, when this issue was wrapping up, I think. Weird ad for Grandia. Again, something else that's covered later in the issue. I was so excited when Grandia came out by Sony because I was a big Game Arts fan, a big Lunar fan. I had actually bought the Japanese version of Grandia and played through it in Japanese with the help of GameFAQs, probably. So when Sony picked it up, I was super excited. Sad about the voices. The voices sucked. But yeah, this is a weird ad. I mean, great that Sony gave it 2 pages. But the backwards, let's see here. It's a mystery. Wow. Wrapped in a riddle, tucked inside an enigma, neatly stacked inside a puzzle, located somewhere inside a conundrum. is what that backward text reads. I think what's kind of stupid about this, I can't believe I'm spending time on this. If you look closely, all of the letters are backwards. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, it's not stupid. I'm stupid. Yeah. I see I've got this wrong. The D's look like B's and it drives me nuts. But that's because they're backwards. Never mind. I get it. And I'm not even gonna edit that out. What are you gonna do? Yeah. So we'll talk more about Grandia later. Donkey Kong 64, December 1999, Electronic Gaming Monthly. What a terrible, terrible game. Here's some of that non-endemic advertising I was talking about. Movie is now on sale for $1 billion. Prices may vary. Of course, this is the second Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Sale for the first and last time this millennium. Bring it. See, they could say that because we're getting into the last few months of 1999, which they really traded on too. Bring it home today on VGS and Platinum Series DVD. The America Online keyword. Get Austin. Man, America Online. All right. The N64 really was the home for great wrestling games, is my understanding. Also my understanding that this is not one of them. But you know what? I did play a little bit of this. And it wasn't bad. Although I will say, and maybe this is just me, one of the things I loved about wrestling games as we got into like the late 90s and the multimedia era was that with Redbook Audio and with full motion video, the entrances were more or less intact, which I always thought was great. Like I remember any time that I had to review a wrestling game for EGM, I would make a point of going and watching everyone's intro scenes. I don't know why, it's just something that I did. And so I kind of was doing that with this as well, with WrestleMania 2000. And boy, are they not great. I mean, the audio's kind of there, but like these backgrounds, like you're seeing Stone Cold come out here, but those are just quick images, I think, that they flip between. It was all right. I do kind of love that they're sort of talking about the history of WrestleMania here. I like this ad because they're talking about like sort of some of the big headlines from all the previous WrestleManias as they got to 2000. Like WrestleMania 1, WWF ushers in a new age of wrestling popularity. WrestleMania 2, first Battle Royale. 3, breaks live attendance records. 4, plays host to, well, there's actually a typo there. 2, the first WrestleMania heavyweight title tourney. 5, Shawn Michaels' debut as a member of the Rockers. 6, the Mega Towers, both the Mega Powers lose in the same night. 7, Undertaker scores a decisive victory in his debut. 8, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker continue the rise. 9, Fed Championship changes hands twice in one night. 10, or X, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon wrestle for the IC strap in the original Hardcore Classic. 11, X-Pac and Road, this is when I had started to check out, Road Dogg make their WrestleMania debuts for Jeff Jarrett and Razor Ramon. 12, Heartbreak Kid wins a 60-minute Iron Man match for the title. I think this, and this kind of bothers me actually, is of course, I believe that was against the excellence of execution, Bret Hart, who's one of my favorite all time because I'm Canadian. And of course, he's not mentioned because he was not at WWF anymore at this point. He was at WCW. Anyway, cool ad. There's a typo there, though. And I was also sort of struck by the fact that, oh my God, some of these guys look so young. Like The Rock. Look at The Rock. He doesn't even look like The Rock. Anyway, good times. And there's Game Fan. Most electrifying wrestling game the world has ever seen. All right, we're finally into the contents. We're really moving along here. Not really going to look at this too closely. Getting Sonic in there. Nope. Oh, there's Pikachu. Told you, look, Pikachu. More non-endemic advertising, this time for Levi's. That is so 90s. That is such a 90s look. That is a long neck. Suikoden 2, which of course was covered last issue for temporary relief of Dragon's Breath, Monster Pains, or Battle Fatigue, take 2 as often as needed. Great game. Here's Resident Evil 2 on the N64, which is covered later in this issue as well. This, I'll say also, because I don't own a copy of this, awfully hard game to emulate properly. I might have footage of it in this episode. I might not. But this was a big deal. So Resident Evil 2 on N64, first of all, because this was kind of like the feather in the cap of a lot of people when it came to the system wars and N64 versus PlayStation, and like Saturn wasn't really even in the mix at that point. That, you know, games like Resident Evil 2 couldn't really exist on the N64. So the fact that they released Resident Evil 2 on the N64 was pretty crazy, pretty awesome. And I think there's something special about this too. It doesn't say though. Yeah, I think there was something special about this, that there was something in here that was not in the PlayStation game, but it doesn't say what it is. I'll probably say it in the walkthrough later. Also, I forgot about Capcom Edge. I think that was like a club you could join. I don't know. We're finally into the letters. I'm not going to look through a lot of these because the letters are always mostly people asking about tips and tricks. Like, it's just another area where we're giving tips to people. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is actually this first letter, which says, first off, I'm not trying to be a wise guy. I'm just pointing out a mistake so you don't make it again. In your October issue, page 114 of your Sonic strategy, that would be Sonic Adventure, says that you get nothing for obtaining all the Sonic emblems. That's not true. If you get 100 or more emblems, you can access the Sonic Adventure homepage via Dreamcast and download a rare Chow, those cute fuzzy wuzzy things that you can take care of. I know because I did it, thanks to the rest of your strategy guide. Other than this tiny little mistake, you guys put out a great mag, right up there with EGM, from Ernie in Bridgeport. Now, the reason I thought this is interesting, because if you see the response, it says, at the time of our Sonic Adventure Guide, the internet features weren't operational. Nothing went live until September 9th, long after our deadline. Thanks for the info. So, I often say that I'm kind of glad that I got out of games journalism, especially when it came to reviews and stuff like that, before games really went online in a huge way, and especially before all these day one patches and stuff like that. And it just struck me that here back in 99, we're kind of seeing the beginning of that with issues like this, where there was no way of us knowing, unless, you know, Sega had told somebody up front that the online element would have, you know, something that would make something we said in one of our strategy guides wrong. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that that was a thing. But anyway, also kind of like the 411 on N64 Mario Golf. What happened to the transfer pack? Does anyone remember the transfer pack? I read something about being able to transfer players from the N64 version of Mario Golf to the Game Boy version, which, by the way, fantastic game. Game Boy Golf, or Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color. Love that game. I need to stream that sometime, too. But I found nothing in the instruction manuals on how to do that. What's the deal? Yep, it's true. For whatever reason, Nintendo decided not to mention this extremely cool feature in the manuals for the two games. But we're happy to report that it's still in place. Although the US transfer pack won't be released until March when Pokemon Stadium comes out, eager Mario golfers can go ahead and import one from Japan. It's called the 64 GB pack over there. You should be able to find it at most reputable online import retailers. Our personal favorite, Tronix, will be stocking packs for under $25. With the pack, you can import your created golfers from the Game Boy version of Mario Golf into the N64 version and then use them on your N64. A very cool feature indeed. Thanks to this, we're able to take our own Golf Ace XG Pimp straight to the top. Tiger Woods, eat your heart out. I think we've kind of explained there why they took it out of the manuals if the transfer pack wasn't coming out until Pokemon Stadium. But yes, that feature was there, and it was very cool. What's next here? There was something else that I wanted to look at in here. But yeah, again, mostly Cameo FF appearances, Chrono Trigger Remake, which I believe we did end up. This is the import pick of the month. So this also, I think, came out as part of another compilation. Like, it was still called a Final Fantasy. I think we did Final Fantasy Origins, which was 5 and 6. and then Final Fantasy Anthology, and then I think there was another one, Chronicles maybe, that had Chrono Trigger in it. Always love looking at these. So in September of 1999, the top 10 best-selling games of September 1999, Final Fantasy VIII, NFL 2000, Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue. Blows my mind that those were still the third and fourth top-selling games in the U.S. by late 1999. And of course, Pokemon Pinball is there as well, and Pokemon Snap. Like, again, Pokemon, what a monster. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 10 games. And all Game Boy. No, sorry, 1 and 64. Sega doing well with NFL 2K, Sonic Adventure, Gran Turismo from Sony, also still a top-selling game, which is impressive, because I think that came out, 97 or 98? And Soul Calibur. In Japan, they were playing Derby Stallion 99, Biohazard 3, of course, in this is Resident Evil 3, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 for Game Boy Color. Great versions of those games, I think, personally. I don't know what that says. Zil-ol. Let's Make a Pro Soccer Club. Dreamcast. That must have been big for Sega, because the Sega's consoles never seemed to be popular in well, I shouldn't say that. The Saturn was. World Soccer Winning 11, 4, Psychic Force 2, Torneco's Mysterious Dungeon, another Dragon Quest game, Dance Dance Revolution 2nd Remix, the game before I get into the series, which was 3rd Remix, thanks CJ, and Doko Demo Isio. And of course, our editor's top 10, no surprise, Soul Calibur, Final Fantasy VIII, Resident Evil 3, Dino Crisis, FIFA 2000, NHL 2000, those would be Dan Leahy's editions. Final Fantasy Anthology, that was last month, so we get into Resident Evil 2 and Jet Force Gemini. Another Sega ad with the bigger screen grabs, although if you look, these are pretty terrible screen grabs. They're very, very grainy. Virtual Fighter 3 TB, which I always found a little bit disappointing, personally. University of the Butt Slam class, Meet the Professor. Adapt or get squished. Love it. Wear a cup. That's great. Some coming soons here. More So We Could End stuff. And yeah, I don't think there's another correction there. Smoke them Marlboros. Oh, Marlboros, see? Ha ha ha. Yep. All right, on to 24. Oh, yeah, this I wanted to talk about. So I mentioned this last issue as well. Of course, there's the letter art. Always a huge thing for magazines back in the day. So we talked about this a little bit. In the last issue, there was a 3DFX ad, and I called it out. A is a sort of an example of how things were a little bit different back then. Product of the time, and that wonderful phrase that everyone loves. But saying how, man, you'd be nuts to try to fly an ad like this nowadays. And of course, how badly video game magazines wanted to be Lad Mags. We were all trying to be Maxim. Well, some more than others. I don't think XG was, but the advertising kind of went along with that. And yeah, so there was this 3DFX ad where it's just a TV with a blue screen. And if you can't read that, it says there are two kinds of gamers in this world. The ones who still play on consoles and the ones who've actually seen breasts. And I called out that that was an issue, and I think I said that we probably got complaints about that. Well, here's one of the complaints. Dear Expert Gamer, your mag is the coolest anyway. I was wondering if I could use... that's a Pocket Station. Bad ads. Dear Expert Gamer, I know the last thing you guys want to hear is criticism, but I think you're getting too laid back when it comes to your ads. For example, one of the ads on page 41 in issue 65 is way out of line. It says, what I just read, thank God my parents haven't seen it. They would have had a fit. You've probably already heard this, but just think of the children. I know you have to make money somehow, but putting in an ad of that nature is just ludicrous. From Chris Ham in Dallas, Texas. And our response, actually, Chris, we thought long and hard about whether we should allow that ad in the magazine, but ultimately we let it slide for a couple of reasons. For one, we know our readers are smart enough to detect BS from a mile away. And two, we thought it'd be cute to let you guys see 3DFX pour its money into a futile ad for outdated hardware. Any real PC gamer knows that Nvidia is where it's at right now anyway. Anyone who would seriously rather pay upwards of $1,500 for a fully decked out PC that'll be outdated in 2 months and plays games that are bug-ridden more often than not shouldn't be reading this magazine. If you really need the PC experience so bad, buy a Dreamcast or wait for Microsoft's rumored Xbox. Then use the money you saved to buy your girlfriend something nice. So, I think it was noble of us to, I mean, of John, I guess, but of our magazine in general to write this or to share this criticism. I think the response here is a little bit of a cop-out. Obviously, somebody somewhere did think that ad was okay. But, you do that once in a while, especially, again, as I mentioned before, where game magazines back then realized that the audience was getting older, and we assumed, rightly or wrongly, that it was predominantly male. And it was getting more edgy. And, of course, somebody thought that ad was probably okay, because it was, I think, if anything, it was like a canary in a coal mine. We were just sort of testing the waters to see what would be acceptable. Clearly, this wasn't. I do think it's interesting that, and what I do love is that we did sort of call out an advertiser to say, like, they're completely out of touch and that was wrong. There is another 3DFX ad in this issue, but of course, when that ad was sold versus when this was written, there was a huge discrepancy of time there. So I'm curious to see when we get to Expert Gamer 67 if there's still 3DFX ads in there. But I did like that we called this out. Although, again, when I reread that again, it felt like a bit of a cop-out. I reached out to John and asked him if he remembers if there was any fallout from this, but he doesn't remember. Because it was, 25 years ago, 23 years ago, 24 years ago, somewhere in there. Another non-endemic ad from Echo Footwear. Footwear will never be the same. StarCraft 64. So, this was another one that I never really played. Notice it was designed for the N64 expansion pack. I did try a little bit of it before I started this video, and it's not bad. It's not a bad version of StarCraft. I mean, for someone like me who's not a StarCraft expert or huge fan or anything, it felt very playable using an N64 controller, which I'll admit I was a little bit surprised about. So, overall, not a bad game. Nothing really to talk about in this ad. It's eye-catching, for sure. I don't miss calling everything with, adding 64 to the name of anything. But, it was a thing. It was a choice. We're into the tricks, so we're going to tear through these probably pretty fast. Because there's a lot of them, like I said last time, and I'm so impressed that there's a lot of these ads or a lot of these tricks, and we still have so much room for everything else. So starting off, of course, with mostly Dreamcast, then we throw a PlayStation trick down here, trick of the month for PlayStation. It's funny seeing this again because, like I said, I watched The Fast and the Furious with my daughter last night, and that movie came out after this issue came out, but she was so fascinated by so many things. Like you see the cell phones in that. In that movie, of course, that were pre-smartphone. At one point, you see Brian chasing down Dom and the crew, and he's trying to figure out where they need to go, and he's got a paper map in front of him, which I think she found really interesting. And one of the other things that I was surprised about was when they had to hail a cab. She was blown away by that because, of course, she knows about Uber and Lyft and stuff and not hailing a cab. But one thing I think she really struggled with was that she didn't understand why you would have a movie. Like her understanding of Fast and Furious is sort of the big, stupid superhero movies that they've become. And I was like, no, this is a much smaller film and it's about street racing. And she's like, well, why would you have a movie just about street racing? I mean, obviously it's deeper than that, but I was just saying, like, you got to understand that, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, street racing was a big deal. And I just seeing that this Tokyo Extreme Racer trick in here just kind of reminded me of that conversation. But anyway, all right. More Dreamcast codes. There's the Hulkster, N64 codes, Sarge's Heroes. What a terrible series. More N64 codes, and here is that 3DFX ad. Now this one is a little less. This one's just sort of insulting, but it's not in his bad taste. It's cool if you're still gaming on a console. Oh, by the way, did one of you guys lose your blankie? Because we found one. But yeah, they were really going for the edgy, let's insult the people reading this ad, unless they're PC gamers. Of course, this is a console-centric magazine. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that it worked or not. So 3DFX PC accelerators, there's a better way to game. Most of us started out our gaming careers on a console, and that's fine. But things change as we mature. We stop sucking our thumbs. We stop wetting our beds. And when we find out that PC gaming with a 3DFX Voodoo graphics accelerator is far superior to consoles, we stop playing on consoles. So check one out today. As for the bedwetting, we're pulling for you. They catch your eye, at least. Another Dreamcast ad, NBA 2K. Dreamcast had some really, really good games. It's too bad. Iverson learns from your mistakes. Apparently, that's a full-time job. Again, the whole Dreamcast, it's thinking, hey, this game's so smart, it learns from you. 29 teams throw down in 28 arenas. Does that mean, and maybe somebody smarter than me will know this, or a bigger fan than me, 29 teams in the NBA 2K, was that all the teams at the time? I don't know. Microwaves don't get this hot, son. More codes, still on N64. And this, we talked about Vatical Entertainment last issue. This is a terrible ad. Like, it's just ugly. It's just like, blah. Here's a bunch. It looks like a catalog. Doesn't tell you anything about any of these games. I don't know. I really don't like this ad. And I did go in and try out one of these games. I don't know if it was because of this ad, but I think there's another one later on. Catwoman. Boy, bad game. Anyway, N64 codes. Also a terrible ad here. But I thought this was interesting. Shockwave.com. So this is a Samsung ad. Samsung Digital. Everyone's invited. Programmer or gamer, there's a digital challenge for you at Samsung's Digital Diversion. $50,000 grand prize. And yeah, Samsung Electronics, Shockwave.com. Samsung's Digital Diversion is offering programmers a cool $50,000 grand prize when a winner-takes-all contest for the hippest, hottest Shockwave or Flash Web game from October 6th to November 30th. Now, the only reason I think this caught my eye is I don't think either of these are a thing anymore. I think Flash was sunset a few years back. But when I was still, my last sort of job in the games industry before I moved into my current position was developing mostly Flash, apps as well, but mostly Flash games for preschoolers. And so it just sort of hit me, wow, 1999. Again, not a pretty ad, but more about like, you know, wow, Flash and Shockwave were a thing, right? Giving away cool Samsung digital products like Sync Master TFT LCD monitors, which do look pretty cool. Or maybe that's what that is. Portable MP3 players, digital cameras. Boy, this ad is just of its time. We're into PlayStation codes at this point. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, what a monster. So this, again, this ebworld.com ad. You know you're gonna score, right? Because it means you're gonna have sex. I used to have one of these keyboards and I loved it. I didn't used to have that. It's a done deal. The hot new release you're drooling over will soon be yours. You just found ebworld.com, the planet's most reliable source for games, guides, and accessories at great prices, plus up-to-the-minute release dates, online news, and reviews from fellow gamers. What more could you expect from the people who brought you Electronics Boutique? Interesting. Whatever you need, know you're going to score it here. We'll never tease you, man. Oh, not like your girlfriend. Yeah, right. Electronics Boutique. Okay, right. Because EB wasn't... No, I was for some reason thinking of Software Etc. Because like Software Etc. and EB and Funko and everything merged. Something that caught my eye about this, I don't know why this hits me. I don't understand why he's playing a game when he's clearly supposed to be on the Electronics Boutique website. I do like that everything's backwards here. But I also love that there's a Macintosh game section and toys. But I don't know why he's playing a game. I think I had that flight stick too. I loved that thing. That's how I played through Wing Commander 3 and 4. Time to put on your thinking cap. Another RPG ad from Konami, Vandal Hearts 2, which again will be covered as a strategy in a future issue of Expert Gamer. Vandal Hearts, I just streamed through the entire game last year, and boy, that game is still great. I've never really played Vandal Hearts 2. I watched Jim playing it while he was doing the strategy guide in an upcoming issue, and it was great, but and I've never really played it myself. But yeah, of course, this game was very political. Just like the first one, the four great powers of the world are collapsing into a political and bloody war. To help, you must bring the battlefield strategy, courage, and an armory of over 120 different weapons. Your reward, world peace, and perhaps the hand of a beautiful maiden. Fail, and on your own head be it. I'm noticing a lot of these ads, too, are not showing a lot of screenshots, which I don't get. More PlayStation codes. There's Lara, because she was also super popular still at this point. Future issue, I will be doing a Tomb Raider Last Revelation, I believe, strategy guide. Of course, these Rainbow Six, Tom Clancy Rainbow Six games have been going on forever. This one was from Rebellion. The fate of the world is in your hands. Be glad you have a pause button. We talked about Happy Puppy last episode. It still blows my mind that they were advertising in magazines. Still blows my mind how huge. I still think that was the most popular website on the internet at one point. Just crazy. Crazy. This caught my eye as well. So we're still doing PlayStation codes here. Again, how many pages of codes have we had so far? Hang on a sec. Go back. I think we're at what? We started on page 28. So there's been 20 pages of codes so far. Because you didn't go on the internet for your codes. You went to Expert Gamer. And you went on the internet. But no, this thing I'd forgotten all about. And I never really used one myself. Got the King of Fighters Dream Match 1999. Again, not a great ad. Like the word dream is getting lost in this like film stock image. I loved these games though. King of Fighters. Iori was like my favorite character. The arcade fighting legends are here on King of Fighters Dream Match 1999 for the Sega Dreamcast system. 38 of your favorite fighters on 6 different game modes come together for the Battle Royale. I also noticed that they're double spacing after every period. Link up with the Neo Geo Pocket Color to upload and download information. The game that kings dream of. I'd forgotten about the link cable for the Dreamcast. I don't even think I had one, but it was a thing where you could link your Neo Geo Pocket Color to the Dreamcast to share data. I never did it myself, but I know people had one. We're into Game Boy codes. Exciting times. It's interesting. Oh, yeah, okay. They're making references when they show these. Look at that. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. This is smart. So they're using, we're just using basically game clip art. I'm just noticing this now. Game clip art to dress up what are basically just like walls of text. But I just noticed now that they're referencing the page where, like, based on the image, they're telling you the name of the game and the page where you can find that, the cross-referencing, where you can find that code. That's great. That's a great idea. Why didn't I notice that before? That's brilliant. Of course, we're on page 50 for this one. But either way, very cool. I went and played a little bit of this as well. I think I mentioned it last issue. But, of course, everybody was trying to do the extreme sports thing, especially after Tony Hawk hit it so big. And THQ, I think Konami ended up with MTV Sports at one point, but THQ had the MTV Sports license. I went and played this. It's not good. It is not good. Killer soundtrack from Blink-182, Ministry, Fear Factory, H2O, Voodoo Glow Skulls, Joy, Lagwagon, 10-Foot Pole, Pulley, and Face to Face. I recognize some of those names. Blink-182, Ministry, Fear Factory. That's about it. There's why I played the Catwoman game. We're still on Game Boy codes. Yeah, boy, this Catwoman Game Boy game. I don't know why it was made exactly. I don't think it had to do with the animated series because that cover is clearly not, at least from the Batman animated series I remember. So I'm not sure what the license is referencing, but yeah, boy, this is not a good game at all. I might put some footage of it on here. It's from Vatical, although it was from Kemco. Yeah. Game design rewards covert strategy instead of mindless punching and kicking. I disagree. I talked about this ad last issue too, TNN Hardcore Heat. I went and played this a little bit in prep for this recording, and this is also not a bad game. And boy, Dreamcast games, they look old now, but man, were they pretty back then. Like, just even not great ones. Just that system's 3D pre-PlayStation 2, and even after the PlayStation 2 launched, the Dreamcast, especially from a texture standpoint, was unreal looking compared to even a PlayStation 2 for a little while. Once people got a handle on the PlayStation 2, obviously it got a lot better on that system, but man, for the first like 6 months to a year, you couldn't beat 3D games on the Dreamcast. And here we are with the game of the month. Most hardcore Resident Evil of all. That would have made Jim happy. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Following hot on the heels of Dino Crisis comes the latest entry in Capcom's flagship survival horror series, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Even though Nemesis is more of a side story to Resident Evil 2 than an actual sequel, it's still packed with all of the chills and thrills and spills, usually from a zombie's decapitated head, that fans of the series have come to expect. And while RE2 focused mostly on furthering the overall RE storyline, Nemesis leans more toward enhancing the gameplay. In fact, the hard mode is easily the most challenging of all Resident Evil adventures thus far. The question is, are you hardcore enough? Now, I believe 100% that Jim Mazurek, even if he did multiple strategies this month, played through this game multiple times and finished every mode, because that's the kind of person he was, the kind of editor he was, and that's one of the reasons he was so good at what he did. Let's read his intro by Jim Mazurek. Bustin' up zombies, Raccoon City style. The often imitated but never quite replicated series is back in full swing with the latest installment of Resident Evil RE3 Nemesis. Returning with all of the energy and fright of the previous two games, Nemesis adds a new and enhanced set of gaming controls, including tactics for dodging, parrying, and escaping attacks. Wow, how forward-thinking. A choose-your-own-adventure style storyline, the usual throng of secrets, and an innovative way to control your ammunition inventory. All of these additions make for one heck of a gaming experience that should not be missed by fans of the series. And what about that Nemesis thing? Damn, it really freaks me out. It's not quite as weird as the original Tyrant. It's actually quite similar to the Tyrant from RE2, but it just doesn't die. If I hear it mutter that low-pitched stars just one more time. 10 hours to complete, moderate challenge, better than RE2, tough call. Why is it a tough call? Because of the Nemesis. Special thanks, Spaceman. I believe that is a reference to Che Chow. Che's handle on IRC at the time was J Spaceman. I think that's a reference to him. They added dodging and parrying, which was a big deal. So conserving ammo was always a big deal in the Resident Evil games, and they changed something here. I think it's because you create your own ammo in Resident Evil 3. Yeah, ammunition management is the last thing you should worry about with the overwhelming amount of available gunpowder. Even morons will have zounds of ammo left at the end of the game. Also, you talking about using exploding barrels, herb mixing chart. I do love this where he says, like, green plus blue is kind of a worthless combination, so don't waste your time. Green plus red is best value. Green is a ripoff, even though it's 100% health. Green, red, blue is full health, poison cure, and invulnerability, so that's obviously what you want. But I just like how, because this is the kind of thing, I know for me, and I don't know if a lot of people feel this way, but I know for me personally in games like this, especially where there's any crafting involved, I'm always second guessing, what do I spend my items on? Like, am I going to do the wrong thing? Am I going to make the wrong thing and then suddenly not have enough of something I need later on? And that sort of like paralysis of choice kills a lot of the games where craft. That's why I don't play games with a lot of crafting, because I can't get past it for some reason. These maps, I'm guessing, were probably originally hand-drawn by Jim and then given to, I'm going to say probably Tim Davis, based on the style here, to redraw. The reason I say I think they were hand-drawn by Jim is they sure look like they were drawn on graph paper. That's just me. They might have been supplied by Capcom. I don't know, but I think they kind of look like they were drawn on graph paper. Now, I say that there's a lot of diagonals, so I could be wrong. But, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if Jim went in and hand drew these maps, which, if you've ever played a game like Resident Evil with the constantly shifting camera angles, that would be tough. And I say that as someone who, in a future issue, you're going to see, I mapped out maybe not all, but huge chunks of Tomb Raider Last Revelation. And I think it was Revelation. It might have been Chronicles. And that was not easy because you don't have an overhead view. You're literally taking one step, drawing the map, and taking a step. I think Jeremy Parrish has a whole video series about doing that on live streams. Kind of, again, I love that this weapons chart, it really tells you like what weapons are worth having and what you should just leave behind. Something else that I would totally be lost on in this game. Also, strategies for fighting the Nemesis. Highly recommend running from the Nemesis every chance that you get. If you plan on playing through to get each and every secret, you'll have plenty of time to play with him in one of your subsequent games. Because it's 8 completions. And again, I'm guessing that Jim is saying that from experience. He probably played through this at least 8 times just for this strategy guide. Nemesis HP chart and which weapon will do what damage to him. Fantastic, very useful. Like this strategy, when I was sort of pre-reading this issue, super useful. It's really great. I don't know what the strategy on, like, say, GameFAQs looks like right now, but I'm curious if it's as useful as this one. Should just scan this thing and put it on GameFAQs. So this is a little bit, this is where Crispin Boyer came in. I don't know, it's funny that he was asked to do this because it's pretty straightforward, but because Crispin's a fantastic writer. Which monster keeps it real? So of course, Tyrant was in Resident Evil 2, I think. I don't know enough about Resident Evil. And Nemesis is the big bad monster that kind of chases you around throughout Resident Evil 3. So just reading this, it's been said that Resident Evil 3's Star Bruiser is really just a second-rate knockoff of RE2's Tyrant. After all, the Nemesis walks like the Tyrant, brawls like the Tyrant. Heck, he even shops at the same trenchcoat outlet stores as Tyrant. We wanted to get to the bottom of the controversy. Instead of settling this the old-fashioned way, i.e. having the two tangle by the flagpole, we went straight to Umbrella HQ and dug up some dirt on these monsters' off-duty interests. Who's the knockoff of whom? Eyeball the data and figure it out. So, of course, we have Tyrant's turn-ons or killing Stars members. Also, Nemesis turn-ons. Turn-offs for Nemesis Stars members. Also, the Tyrant's turn-offs. Favorite boy band for Tyrant is the Backstreet Boys. Favorite boy band for Nemesis is NSYNC. Favorite soda for Nemesis is New Coke. Favorite soda for Tyrant is Coke. Favorite flick is Airplane. Favorite flick Hot Shots. Favorite restaurant Long John Silver's. Favorite restaurant Red Lobster. Favorite TV show Party of Five. Favorite TV show Dawson's Creek. Favorite candy Reese's Pieces. Favorite candy M&M's. What I will say is I think this is sort of a cute and clever way of taking up a quarter of a page to balance out the strategy guide, but also saying they're the exact same thing. Further we go, Clock Tower, that's a completely different game. Again, great, very useful maps. A little bit of choice time here. Extra stuff. Playing through the entire game. Yeah, so this is sort of Jim talking about what he's learned, I think, which is after playing through the entire game a few times, I noticed certain techniques that weren't quite so obvious the first few times through. This section was designed to give rookie players some helpful insight when it comes to plugging through the game several times in succession. And again, I know that it's weird. It might be weird in a magazine where the whole point is that it's full of strategy guides and, you know, of course, we're going to give people something helpful. But it was really easy, especially based on having limited space. Now, this game has a lot of space because it's Game of the Month, that you would sort of... You could just do and you'll see my Grandia strategy is very similar to this, where you just start at the beginning, work your way through, and then you're done because you don't have a lot of space to do anything else. But I love, and again, this is why Jim was good at his job, stuff like this, where it's just like, it would be just as easy to throw in some art here or to throw in another weapons chart or a monster chart or something like that. And instead, it's like, this guide is going to walk you through the game anyway. But here's some stuff I wish I knew when I played the first time. Some strategies that'll get you through. Great idea. Again, this is why Jim was really good at his job. But we're still going. Oh yeah, I think they were the Mercenaries games. There's a whole sort of mini game layout here. And then, of course, we cover all the endings. Spoiler alert on page 69. Nice. 8 different endings. Again, I'm sure Jim got every one of them. The unlockable outfits. I love the beret and especially large shoulder pads for this one. Secrets and stuff. Notes checklist. Again, very useful. And then we're on to the N64 game, the main N64 game being shown in here, which is Force Gemini, from Mr. Andrew Barron. Rest in peace, Andrew. Bug busting mission guide. Rare is at it again. Force Gemini is yet another masterpiece for Nintendo's prized developer, now owned by Microsoft. Combining the intense shooting action of Turok with the quest-like adventure of Zelda, this cart will wow even the most jaded gamer. Rare must have realized that it hit pay dirt with the multiplayer mode of GoldenEye, because Jet Force has several options for competitive gamers. As an incentive for playing the basic game, bonuses have been liberally strewn across the worlds. In other words, if you want all this game has to offer, you're going to have to earn it. Yuck. But hey, different time. The progression of JFG is unlike that of any other game. You must switch between characters and worlds at a dizzying rate. There's just so much to do. This guide will show you whatever you might be missing. Odds are you've missed a lot. So, yeah, I've never been a big Rare fan. Was not a Rare fan on the N64. I went and played some of this. It's pretty decent. Way deeper than, 1 hour check was. And it's kind of open world. Again, I kind of like how Andy broke this down. We've got the different characters. We've got sort of different main elements you should know about. I'm sure there are a ton of things you have to collect in this game because it's a Rare game. Here's the main thing you need to collect. I do like this. So he breaks it down because, again, you're switching between worlds all the time. So he breaks down, as you visit these worlds, the difficulty of the world, how many tribals are there, which is, I think, something you have to collect. The tribals. Rescue all the tribals in order to beat the game. So I guess these are tribals. Anyway, how many of them are there? Where the world will take you to. Like this takes you to the SS Anubis. So the outset, the lodge, the rim. So yeah, just really useful information that if you want to dig in further, you can, and you'll get more information. But these little blurbs at the top are kind of like at a glance. If I'm playing through it and I don't want my hand held, at least I have a bit of an idea. It's like, okay, so I need to pick up, if I'm out in this area, there's 7 tribals out here, right? So just stuff like that is nice. And there are Floyd missions. What are the Floyd missions? In Tophet, Juno can find a robot that's been mangled by Mizar's legions. Put him back together and you'll have a helpful tool. Because he'll tell you where enemies are at, Floyd makes a wonderful early warning device. Another great Floyd feature is the fact that a second player can grab a controller and take over his guns. Although he only fires single shots, they're pretty powerful and they can definitely make a difference. Plus, it's just fun to play with 2 people. But it looks like you actually unlock missions for Floyd in different areas. So again, somebody who was good at their job, who is breaking things down in a very useful way. And I just love going back, because looking at these, strategy magazines, I find it's sometimes difficult to come up with things to talk about, because I don't know that reading what you could basically find in GameFAQs is all that exciting to talk about in a Let's Read. But I do love, when I'm reading these, seeing sort of the craft behind how to put these together, again, in a very small space, in a very short amount of time. Super respect these guys. Nuclear Strike 64, I think that was the last Strike game, wasn't it? Before LAPD? Might be wrong. I went and played a little bit of this. It's pretty good. Actually, it's pretty well done. Again, by THQ, so licensed by EA. First time ever on N64. Again, we're still here with Jet Force Gemini. Dune 2000, I love that, and now that I'm sitting here, his name is totally escaping me. But, yeah, I love that. Oh my god, what's his name? I'm going to have to look it up. That's terrible. I had it in my mind. What is his name? My gosh. You know, he's a pretty popular actor. He's been in some things. Lord of the Rings. Indiana Jones. Sala and Indiana Jones. Wing Commander. One of my favorite series. You're all sitting there yelling at the screen now, all 5 of you who are watching this. John Rhys Davies, that's his name. So Dune 2000, of course, an update for the classic Dune series or Dune games that were early real-time strategy game that was very popular. Based on the books. Made perfect sense, right? Because the whole idea is that you're mining spice as sort of a currency while you're trying to hold Dune, Arrakis. I think it was Arrakis, right? And so it was a perfect idea for a real-time strategy game to use that license. And of course, as we got into the early multimedia era, which I've talked about before on my various videos that I really loved because nobody really seemed to know what to do with it. And it was so great to see all the sort of the different approaches that happened. And one was, of course, full motion video intros and cinemas and things. And there was always sort of a rush to get like name actors and faces and voices that you could sort of trade on, especially when you're advertising. And there were a few that seemed to be like early adopters and really made themselves available and really ended up showing up in a lot of games. And John Rhys Davies was one of them. And it was cool to me because I honestly didn't know him and who he was outside of Sala in the Indiana Jones movies. Because this is, of course, pre-Lord of the Rings. I know he was in other movies, but that was what I knew him from. And so then, of course, I saw him in Wing Commander and see him here. And he just sort of, he was one of those guys that you seem to see all over the place. Roddy McDowell, to me, was another one. And Mark Hamill was another one who you seem to see and hear in early multimedia video games all the time. So when I turned and I saw this ad, and it's like, of course, John Rhys Davies was in this game. That's such a John Rhys Davies thing to do. Still on the Jet Force Gemini. Hey, look, Jet Force Gemini in Japan was called Start Wins. Start Wins. There you go. Reading's hard. The ship names Anubis and Sekhmet are named after 2 Egyptian gods. Anubis judged the dead, while Sekhmet was known for her ferocious attempts to kill men. What a babe. Boy. Top Gear Rally 2. Top Gear Rally games were quite popular, and the Top Gear games in general were quite popular, and I think the series was really popular on the N64. It was kind of pointed at as like, hey, look, a great racing series on the N64. It's okay. I wasn't crazy about this. I think I liked the first one from Titus earlier. Item location guide. I think we're probably getting pretty close to the end of the Jet Force Gemini strategy. Hey, look, remember when I've said this so many times, everyone needs a sports franchise, a sports license, a sports label is what I'm trying to say. And here's Fox Sports. Although Fox Sports is a real thing, obviously, there was Fox Sports Interactive with an NBA. Remember when different sporting franchise, or not franchises, but types of sports and the official associations weren't confined to one publisher? Boy, those were the days. Didn't always get great games, but at least you got different games. You had options. We're still on Jet Force Gemini. This is getting almost as much space as Resident Evil 3. We're 80 pages into this magazine. This magazine's pretty big. Bigger than I expected from the looks of it. And I worked on it. You're halfway done. Now the game will come off the rails and allow you to take any character to any level. You should focus on hunting down all the tribals that you missed, as well as the ship parts. Happy hunting. We talked about the Vibra Kicker before. Weird device. Gave me headaches. Space Station Silicon Valley. Not really. Yeah, this must be getting near the end. Diamond Geezer. Mad Catz controllers always felt so cheap to me. This is an interesting button layout, though, which is, I think, was the biggest problem with the Dreamcast was when they went to the 4-button layout, because the Saturn and the Genesis had that 6-button layout that were fantastic on the face. But yeah, Mad Catz, ugh, never liked them. We're still on Jet Force Gemini. Oh, I think we're at the end. We're not. Oh, it's not over yet. Floyd to the rescue. After Mizar has been defeated, you may think the game is over. Sorry, the world is not safe from destruction yet. You have one more Floyd mission to accomplish. It's really easy, as there are no objectives. I love those kind of missions. Fly through as fast as you can. Now, the game is over. Yeah, that's a big strategy guide. Boombots, I remember seeing the ads for, and I'd never played it. So it's a one-on-one fighting game that takes place in the Neverhood. So of course you can, if you know what the Neverhood is, you can, well, there's, what was his name, Duckman? Anyway, that was the main character in Skull Monkeys. You played as him in Skull Monkeys. I want to say that this guy was probably in some of this. So of course this is by the same artist who did Earthworm Jim. The Neverhood was kind of a, there was a PC game called The Neverhood, and then Skull Monkeys was a spin-off of that. And Boombots, I think, is in the same universe. If not, I mean, that's a cameo, but either way, he's in the game. He's the main character in Skull Monkeys. But this is just a one-on-one fighting game. Not great, although I do love his art style, I will say. Cat aliens have taken over the Earth. Boombots are here to stop them. Command 15 Boombots through 15 far-out arenas of real-time 3D fighting action. The cool thing about this, though, is that it's got a bunch of, I think, claymation cinemas, which is what the Neverhood was kind of known for, and they always look good. It always did look good. It still looks good. Oh my gosh, wait a minute. We're not done with Jet Force Gemini. Oh, it's a boss. Okay, so it's showing us all the different boss strategies. That's cool. Neato Mosquito. This Armada is apparently why you bought a Sega Dreamcast. Did you know that? This is an okay game. I think it was just a space shooter. And Dark Angel. Does anyone remember the Dark Angel television series? I think it was a James Cameron. I think he produced it. I don't know that he directed it, but it was a James Cameron series. I don't remember much about it. I even forget the actress who's in it, but I couldn't remember John Rhys Davies' name either, so what do I know? Still on Jet Force Gemini. So now we're into the multiplayer stuff. Here he's got a bit of a weapons. Man, John was really... I can't get over how long this strategy has gone on. I'm going to check the page numbers here. Page 70. Wow, 18 pages. I'll tell you, I never played... So, Destruction Derby, I didn't have... Excuse me, my throat is getting very dry. I'm going to take another drink. I didn't buy a PlayStation right away. I was a Sega guy. I bought a Saturn. And I do remember, though, because I was working in rental stores, that I was very excited about Wipeout and very excited about Destruction Derby. And, of course, Destruction Derby, they were both by released by Psygnosis, but Destruction Derby was by Reflections. And I liked Destruction Derby. I liked the idea of it more than I liked the game. The game was pretty decent, but I loved the idea of this destructible, deformable cars that you would race. And I was sort of back and forth on whether I liked the idea of getting points for wrecking people, because I never got good at not wrecking my own car. But I still liked the idea behind it. And then Destruction Derby 2, I absolutely adored. And, of course, I had a PlayStation by the time that came out. I never played Destruction Derby 64 until I was getting ready to research this issue. This is really good. And again, look, another THQ game. THQ was on it for a while there. This is a game that I would actually love to get a copy of now, because in the little while that I played it, I just had such a good time with it. It's pretty similar to the old ones, but one of the things that this game does that I really, really liked, that I don't remember the first two Destruction Derbies on the PlayStation doing, was that you get onto a track and you'd be in small groups, but there were more than just the group you were with, like on the field. You were competing against a much larger group of cars, and you were ranked against them, but you only started racing with a small group. And normally the other group or groups would be going different directions on the track. So while you were racing, it was all about not necessarily coming first, but surviving, which the first two games dabbled with, but they kind of mixed survival with position on the track. Whereas this one, from what I played of it at least, had everything to do with survival. And automatically it set it up so that the cars were oncoming. And I loved it. It's a really good idea. It's a lot of fun. I did not expect to enjoy it nearly as much as I did when I turned it on. I thought it would just be sort of an N64 port of Destruction Derby, and it's not. That's not even close to what it is. We are still on Jet Force Gemini. We're now into 20 pages long. Secrets. Okay, this is secrets. Right on. Oh yeah, this is kind of dark. 3 secrets can be acquired by collecting the heads of your foes. Equipped with the machine gun, Lupus has the best chance of severing a head clean. This is so dark. But yeah, scalps. You need scalps. Remember what I was talking about earlier. So you can see on the back issues for Expert Gamer, of course, you go back and you're into EGM2 for a couple of them here until we get to the August 98 issue. So Expert Gamer was just over a year old when I joined. And I don't know when John took over. I'm guessing it was somewhere around here, but I don't know. I probably could have asked him that. And now we're into mine. So this was, again, Grandia. So I had been, after I got hired at Expert Gamer, this was my first assignment. I didn't live down in Chicago. I was about to say North Carolina. I didn't live down in Chicago at the time. But John wanted to be able to get me working sooner rather than later. I believe they sent me a PlayStation 1 test kit, a blue kit, I think, along with the preview version of the game from Sony. So I worked on this while I was sort of doing my apartment search and setting up my move. And especially since I'd already had experience with the game. I'd already played through it in Japanese, so it was kind of easy to jump into. So let's just read my intro here. Like Lunar on steroids. For years, it's distressed me how the American public has more or less overlooked the fine games coming out of Game Arts. To be fair, I suspect this probably has a lot to do with these games being released on less than successful systems. However, hot on the heels of Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, Game Arts' latest gem, Grandia, has finally arrived. At last, the North American audience can experience what is one of the best and longest RPGs of our time. This guide will help you get through some of the trickier puzzles and also point out some key items that you just shouldn't miss. In addition, it'll help you decide which aspects of each character you should concentrate on building up so you don't waste any valuable time during your enormously lengthy journey. Yeah, so I think I mentioned this before, and I know I've mentioned it on other videos, and actually my top 100 video, you'll find Grandia. And one of the things I loved about Grandia is that it took, part of it is that it took an element of the Lunar games that I adored, which was battlefield placement, and really ramps it up. So in the Lunar games, your characters start on the right-hand side of the battle screen, just like they would in, say, a Final Fantasy. And the difference is that when they attack, they have a range, and they need to close the distance, unless it's like for magic or a ranged weapon. They need to close the distance between themselves and the enemies, and vice versa. The enemies need to close the distance between themselves and your party. And so as you get deeper into the game and everything got a little more difficult, and your weapons really sort of changed up, it became an important element to learn where to place your characters and how to move them around. And you didn't have direct control of their motion. The motion was dictated by the commands you gave. So if you gave them a command to attack an enemy way across the screen, if that enemy didn't move, they would run straight at that enemy until they couldn't go any further, or until they were blocked by something they weren't supposed to attack. Grandia does that as well, but it's more of an overhead. You have a little bit more control over it. So that's one element of it. The other thing that I loved about excuse me, about Grandia is that it introduces its own sort of version of the active time battle, but you can interrupt enemy characters. So you would see icons of your characters and the enemy characters moving along a timeline, and then when they hit a command spot, that was when the command prompt would happen. And if it was just like a physical attack, they would almost immediately go into that act. If it was a spell, there would be a short period of time where they would, let's say, chant it or whatever it was that they would do. And so they were vulnerable. So if you saw an enemy doing that, or even if you could hit the enemy before completing an attack, it would actually cancel the attack and push their icon back along the timeline. So you could really manage the battle a lot more in Grandia, and that's what I loved about it, and I still love about it. It's such a great feature, and it made this one of my favorite RPGs. The other thing, and I referenced this in this intro, that this game does, is that you didn't necessarily get better, more powerful attacks just based on, randomly grinding away and just attacking things and getting experience points. You actually got points based on how you attacked them. Whether you use like you can see here, these icons, like a sword or a club, or I don't know exactly what they were set up, but also with magic, like earth, fire, wind, and water, those elements. So using those elements and using those types of weapons actually built up your proficiency in those different settings. And then you would unlock special moves and also spells based on your proficiency and the combination of your proficiency. So like looking at this for Justin, the Ice Slash would be a level 16 halberd or axe, plus level 10 wind and level 10 water. And if you met those requirements, then you unlocked the Ice Slash as an ability. And again, I loved that, but also kind of going back to the whole crafting thing. Not that you were using up resources, but that's one of the things that I wanted to do in this strategy guide, was to say, like, okay, here's what you should concentrate on. Not that you shouldn't raise your abilities after these numbers, but like these are the numbers you want to target for these abilities to unlock everything. So anyway, yeah, love this game. And so everything that I just said, I kind of covered here. And then also there's like general magic list as well. But then again, basically I go linear here that I was talking about earlier because I didn't have a lot of space. Well, let's see. Force Gemini had 20 pages. I've got, how many pages do I have? We have nine pages. 9 pages to cover a 70-hour RPG. But that makes sense because it wasn't necessarily super popular. We didn't think it was going to be super popular. So I had to choose to go, or I decided to go just linear. So we won't go through that too much, but we did have this official art from, Sony Game Arts. So I used that as an excuse to dress up these sort of proficiency charts for each character with little bios. So here's Justin, the main character. Also, wow, they didn't change the ages of these main characters when they came over here. So this is so anime. Like, the main character's age is 14. Tired of playing adventure games in the streets of Parm, Justin longs to live the life of a true adventurer. There's no time like the present, so along with Sue, he sets out on an optimistic quest to see the world. But being an adventurer isn't all just fun and games, as our hero will soon discover. Little does Justin know that his upcoming journey will teach him some very valuable lessons, or that the choices he's about to make will test his courage to the very limit and ultimately decide the fate of the world. When you're 14. And of course, building everything up with these armor lists and equipment lists. Again, easy way to fill space. Sue, age 8. I think of my daughter who's 9 and can't believe that she's so young. Since her parents died, Sue and Justin have been practically inseparable. Sue has an almost maternal attachment to her friend, probably more than Justin ever realizes. When Justin decides to leave on his big journey, Sue won't be left out, no matter how much Justin tries to convince her to stay in Parm. Can such a little girl really be all that useful on a big adventure? Although Sue is very mature, she may find that the limitations of her age can't be ignored forever. I'm pretty happy with these bios. Fina is kind of the love interest in the game, and also one of the heroes, obviously. She's 15. I love this. This is also very anime. She's 104 pounds, but she claims to be 93 pounds. Fina has made a name for herself around the world. She's considered the most successful adventurer to come out of the New Prime organization at 15 and claiming to be 93 pounds. To Justin, she's a living legend at 15. And he wants nothing more than to impress her with his skills as an adventurer. Perhaps the respect he gains from their first adventure together will grow into something more. Fina has no idea what an important role she'll play in the upcoming struggle between good and evil. This game was huge. Gadwin, 38 years old. He's ancient. Known for his boundless courage and incredible skill with a sword, the Knight of Dite is the strong, silent type. A tough exterior hides his sensitive soul with an undying loyalty to his friends. Even so, it seems that this aged adventurer's past is filled with both glory and extreme sorrow. Perhaps his companions can crack his emotional shell and learn what drives him to continue his quest. Gadwin is the master of the dragon cut attack, something Justin would do well to learn. 38, he's practically dead. Another 15-year-old, Rap. Rap leads a ragtag gang of youths from the village of Cafu. An age-old rivalry between the people of Cafu and the people of Lane has forced Rap to grow old and extremely cynical before his time. Despite all this, deep down, he has a good heart and can always be convinced to listen to reason, even if he doesn't necessarily want to at first. He's also extremely loyal to his friends. A need to avenge his parents' death will carry him through to the end of the journey. A couple more of these. And again, I'm not reading all these, but I was really proud of this. This was the first one I actually wrote. Milda's 19, so she's pretty old. The women of Lane are known for their incredible strength and their strange cow fetish. Just visit Lane and you'll see what I mean. Just the same, Milda's a noble creature. She uses her incredible physique to inflict massive amounts of pain on anyone who dares threaten the welfare of Lane. Deep down, though, she's a gentle woman with a heart of gold. Even though Rap and Milda may have been enemies at one time, they may be able to look past their differences and work together for the greater good. If you have $20, you can get 12 issues of Expert Gamer this year. And Guido, age unknown, 3'11", 61 pounds. This funny-looking traveling merchant always seems to pop up at the most opportune times. He has a good heart and is always willing to help out an adventurer down on his luck for a price. I was really down with the whole they have a good heart thing. Have you noticed? Even his fighting style shows off his greedy disposition to a point. An adventurer abroad would do well to stay on this little guy's good side. You never know when a friendship like his will come in handy. The best advice when meeting Guido, never judge a book by its cover. So I think I want to look at these two. So the Garlal forces are sort of the enemies, I think, at the beginning of the game, but I don't think they end up being the ultimate baddies. But again, I want to read some of these. So General Ball, at 48 years old, which makes me wonder what I've accomplished in my life, Ball is the leader of the Garlal army. Both respected and feared, Ball has some great plans that none but his top-ranking generals know, and even they don't totally understand. General Ball has finally discovered how to cleanse the world of the evil that has permeated it for so long. Colonel Mullen, 23 years old and a colonel, the half-breed son of General Ball, is second in command of the Garlal forces, and while he supports his father's plans, he doesn't necessarily agree with them. In his own mind, his intentions are totally pure if a little misguided. But that's not the most impressive part. Lean is 15, has accepted her family's unfortunate destiny and knows the best way to carry it through is as Colonel Mullen's aide-de-camp. An unexpected family reunion may cause her to question everything she thought she knew, but will it be too late to reverse her drastic decision? She's 15! And then Nana, Saki, and Mio, who we saw on a previous page. These three girls are the youngest to reach their rank in the history of the Garlal forces. They're 16. They are fiercely loyal to Colonel Mullen, which could have something to do with the fact that they're all madly in love with him. My 16-year-old is not allowed to date a 23-year-old, but she can have a crush. That's fine. Again, filling some space here. Items list, weapons list. We've done all these. Let's do the last one. Liete, I think is how you say her name, is an ancient magical being who observes the people of Grandia. The latest in a long line of keepers, Liete's duty is to record and keep the past. Her fate is decided by the state of prosperity or ruin of the world of Grandia, and things don't look so good lately. She has accepted her cruel fate and almost completely lost hope for herself and the world she loves so much. Who knows? Perhaps a plucky young adventurer might be able to change her mind. But the question is, does she have a good heart? And now we're on to Pokemon Special Pikachu Edition by Todd Zuniga. For several nights I laid sleepless. This is such a Todd intro. Wondering how I managed to live my life without Pikachu following me around. This, of course, occurred after digging my way into the emotionally vexing world of Pokemon Yellow. It was there that I was accompanied by that lovable little canary-painted beast day and night for weeks while working on this guide. Since venturing through the many metropolises of the world of Pokemon, I knew I was no longer safe from the tumult of the real world without my Game Boy and my little stuffed Pikachu. So without further ado, I present the complete Pokemon Yellow guide, which serves red and blue players too, to lead you through the most scintillating journey anyone who ever aspired to simple and ebullient greatness could prescribe to. Whew, that was a mouthful. So I mean, this is a pretty standard Pokemon guide. The Pokemon Yellow is the only version of the first Pokemon I own. I do like this. So, of course, Pokemon mostly evolve based on level, but some of them don't. And I like that these are pointed out here. The questions of evolution, the constant debate between religion and science, God, boils down to a graduation of levels in Pokemon. But some Pokemon do not evolve based on level alone. Below are 20 of the little monsters that either require stones or need to be traded in order to evolve into their better Poké selves. That is, I'd forgotten about having to trade Pokemon to get everybody, and I didn't realize the evolution was based on that too, but clearly it is. Crazy. I'm not a Pokemon guy, never was. Again, it's pretty straightforward setup. I half wonder, and nothing against Todd, but working smarter rather than harder, I wonder if these maps didn't already exist from previous strategy guides for Pokemon in Expert Gamer. I don't know if Expert Gamer went back far enough to have a Pokemon strategy guide, but he may have made them himself. They actually look like they might be screenshots that are stitched together. In fact, I'll bet you that's what they are. Pretty straightforward otherwise. I don't think this game's very long. I really should sit down and play through the first Pokemon someday. There was something in here I wanted to talk about. I mean, again, pretty straightforward strategy guide. That clip art didn't come out too great. It's a pretty big guide overall. But again, you could not go wrong covering Pokemon in 1999 in your magazine. I just kicked the camera. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you just couldn't go wrong. Truth about Pokemon's primary colors. The truth is there are very few differences between Pokemon Yellow and Red and Blue versions. The major changes are represented by a puppy dog Pikachu following close at your heels and being able to find Pokemon in different areas than in Red and Blue. The biggest difference is that the final dungeon is completely different. Otherwise, there are minor changes that we've called out on page 113, but certainly they're nothing groundbreaking. Happy hunting. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, why would I? That the final dungeon is completely different. Also calling out, and yeah, so here it is. This is weird. This is a call out to this side. Let's look at this. So yellow only. Go west from Celadon City and use the cut ability to get through the first bush you see. Go west some more and sneak through the building, and to the west of that is a secluded home. If you promise to keep the place a secret, a reclusive Pokemon trainer will grant you HMO2 Fly, which will help you fly around different parts of the map. Cool. Gary's first Pokemon will always be Eevee, but what it evolves to is up to how you do in your first battle. If you lose, it will evolve into Vaporeon. If you win, it will evolve into Jolteon. If you win at the lab but lose the next battle with him west of Viridian City, it will evolve into Flareon. Flareon? In Cerulean City, you'll have a chance to get Bulbasaur. If your Pikachu loves you, which is if you've been battling and winning, the women in the house to the west of the Pokemon Center will hook you up. But not hook up with you. That's a different thing. To gain Charmander, start going north of Cerulean City towards the Sea Cottage. Instead of a right, go northwest. There'll be a guy there without time to raise a Pokemon, and his loss is your gain. So these are some of the starting Pokemon from the first game, right? Didn't you choose between Charmander and Squirtle? If you throw a dose of beatdown on Lieutenant Surge in Vermilion City, a woman in the middle of the town will be more than happy to offer you Squirtle. He may not be the cutest, but he sure is a nice addition. I don't know, Squirtle's pretty cute. Now, this still goes pretty deep, though. The Elite Four and Gary. Damn you, Gary. Yeah, so here's Charmander versus Squirtle. Who's more adorable? Here at XG, we demanded of ourselves to ask the difficult questions. This month, after fist fights broke out over this testy topic, the answer has evaded us. No truth has come of it, so who is the more adorable Pokemon? So on Charmander's side, it says, you want flaming? Well, you got it. Let's get this a little bit flatter. The sassy and confident fire-tailed Charmander has lived a flamboyant existence, priding himself on a large collection of ascots and leather chaps. This little fireball entertains his close friends by showing off his elegant home where the walls are emblazoned with fruity, abstract paintings. That was a weird thing to say. A lover of beef jerky and peanut butter sandwiches, Charmander is an avid reader of alternative magazines where he feels free to explore his individuality and lust for life. Rarely has a Pokemon felt so free to revel in self-expression. These were absolutely written by Todd. After a childhood ridden with bouts of paranoia and insecurity, this unhappy amphibian suffered through many alarming surgeries in order to find the frivolous, newfangled American ideal of beauty. For this crying on the inside Pokemon, happiness has been as distant and impossible as a game of squash with Winston Churchill. Squirtle has lived a series of lies and a reckless hunt for self-esteem, suffering through all-night bingo tirades at old folks' homes and attempting to spend hot dogs as currency. You call that adorable? That was bizarre. And again, differences between the yellow version and red and blue versions of the Unknown Dungeon. This is probably what everybody who bought this magazine was happy to see. Complete TM and HM chart for every Pokemon. I think, well, there's 75 of them. There's 150, yeah. So, very useful. I can imagine there were kids who would have had this handy or ripped these 2 pages out and had them handy. This one I think is pretty much a quick hit. We're getting near the end of the book now. We're at 120 pages almost. So Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation or on the N64 by Henry Lapierre. The Nintendo 64 platform is sorely lacking when it comes to the more adult or mature game experiences. It seems like just about every other game stars either a cereal box reject or a bunch of sweaty, smelly wrestlers. There were a lot of wrestling games on the N64. That's why Capcom's decision to port one of the all-time greatest PlayStation games over to N64 was such a great idea. The fact that they pulled it off, jamming 2 CDs worth of gaming goodness into one tiny cart, is simply incredible. And the little extras, like the X-Files, make it worthwhile for hardcore fans of the PlayStation version to check out this version as well. That's what I was thinking of earlier when we saw the ad, the X-Files thing. Our guide will get you through both scenarios as either Leon or Claire. Use the maps for reference. It's easier than going to your map screen every 2 seconds, and it'll show you how to find all 16 X-Files. So yeah, but as you can see, these are very, so scenario A, I mean, they're very like bang, 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 bang. Because I don't think this gets a lot of space. It says here how to use this guide. Since the A and B quests are largely similar for both Leon and Claire, we've decided to just do one combined walkthrough rather than individual ones for each. When bits branch that are specific to one character or the other, we'll call it out by showing the character's name and using colored text. For Leon's exclusive stuff, it's blue. For Claire, it's red. So you can see here. Very straightforward. There's scenario B. And then here's all the X-Files. Oh, and it tells you where they all are. So yeah, there's 4 pages for this. Oh, wait, 6 pages. Oh, because there's the maps. I should probably keep these for when I play through this. And the biggest difference between the PlayStation and N64 Resident Evil 2, the above 2 pics show the same scene from both the PS RE2 and the N64 RE2. It's the culture experiment room. On the N64 one, there's a dead hunter there. What could it mean? There's a dead hunter right there. I don't know. What could it mean? Does anyone know what it means? Leave the answer in the comments below. 6 pages Resident Evil 2 got. And we're still going. God, we had a lot of games in this issue. So this is Spyro Ripto's Rage, which was what? The 3rd Spyro game? Or maybe it's the 2nd one. No, it's Spyro 2. Guy Doll 64 Orbs. Spyro's back, and this time he's got some nifty new skills to help him through his latest PlayStation quest. Spyro 2 looks and plays pretty much the same as the original, though our fire-breathing friend can learn some neat techniques, such as the ability to climb up ladders. This time the game is also much more story-based and has more cinema scenes than any other 3D platformer I can think of. Ripto's Rage is set in a completely different world from Spyro 1. The game's designers have taken a nod from similar titles like Banjo-Kazooie in creating the backdrop for this one. There are many worlds, and each requires you to collect all the gems and orbs. Spyro 2 is geared more toward kids for sure, but the difficulty of some of the levels will appeal to even the hardcore crowd. Can you find all the orbs? Well, I can, because you've given me a guide that shows me where they are. So this is, again, kind of a quick hit on what I'm sure is a much bigger game. Well, it's about an 8-hour game, I guess. But again, it's just to find these orbs. And I like that there are checkboxes. It's a nice touch. This was clearly to make sure we got this in here and just fill up space. We got 4 pages so far. But I mean, you can see this isn't really a strategy guide so much as a treasure hunt. 6 pages. Then we're already at the final boss. Spyro games. I've never really played them. And I was right. Look, there's another guide in here for fighting game. So that's 9 games that we've got guides for in here so far. Street Fighter on Steroids by Mark Hain. I believe Mark Hain was an old school EGM or EGM2 guy. Although I know I met him, but I don't think he was a regular editor at that point. Let's read this. How many Street Fighter variants have there been now? 23? 24? I lost count long ago. Anyway, as far as Capcom's Versus series go, this is definitely the best. Although some of the best characters from past Versus games are no longer here, the ones that did make the cut are varied enough to keep things interesting. Being able to play with 4 people, cross fever mode, is an extremely cool feature, and having the ability to cancel moves into other moves is sweet. This makes for some devastating special within special combos and cool looking air attacks. Fortunately, MVC has the same loose engine you've grown to love from past Versus games, so you should be able to pick it up right away. One last thing before you begin, remember to mash the buttons furiously during a super for added hits. So I think Mark came from the previous, or the sort of original iteration of EGM when fighting games were all the rage, and I think he obviously was a fighting game guy. But I mean, this is pretty standard stuff, some basics, some advanced. I think I played this game the other day, but it was the Saturn version, or was that Capcom versus X-Men? Anyway, I do like this. Again, come back to what I was saying. It's great to have moves. That's useful. But telling me who sort of the best tag team partners for each character is the information that I really want. Mega Man, Captain Commando. Who's this guy? Jin. This guy wins the Useless Award. I guess he's for beginners since his moves are simple button presses. Sounds like he's for me. Strider Hiryu. Captain America, the lamest character ever until this movie started coming out. This game got as much space as Ripto's Rage. I loved Gambit watching the X-Men cartoon in the 90s. Who doesn't love Spidey? Venom. All right, see, I forgot about VR missions. Good Lord. We packed this magazine to the gills. I'm pretty proud of this. Metal Gear Solid VR Missions, again by Jim Mazurak, or Solid Zurak, as he calls himself here. Not a sequel, but good enough. Yeah, Naomi and Dr. Candle gave me some VR training back in the days of the missile crisis over on Shadow Moses Island from the original Metal Gear Solid, but it was a joke. I remember specifically telling Mei Ling how easy the training was. Hey Mei, I wish the guards were this half-witted in real life, I said. Why do they keep falling for my knock on the wall with my knuckle technique? I mean, come on. She giggled and then explained that the AI, or artificial intelligence, for the soldiers had not yet been perfected. Well, one thing led to another, and I ended up spending the rest of the day fighting invisible ninjas and giant robots. Here we are almost a full year later with a new enhanced AI and 300 levels of pure training madness. If she knew what I give to get into Gray Fox's ninja suit. And so I mentioned this before. So VR missions, I was super excited about Metal Gear Solid, so I was super excited about anything to do with Metal Gear Solid. VR missions came out. I have it. I own it. I still have my copy. I've never played through it. Although I will say it is kind of fun because they go a little bit overboard. I seem to remember like missions with like gigantic soldiers that you had to fight or outwit or something. Stuff like that. That was pretty cool. But overall, this didn't do much for me. Now, Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy was fantastic. I loved Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy, which also a future strategy guide that I worked on with Mark McDonald. Look at that. You'll be given the default select screen when you start the game. When you complete 100% of the missions, however, you'll be treated to a new and revealing shot. Also loved the art style of these games. But yeah, I mean, they did have some cool stuff in here, I will say. The toughest levels in the special mode are the variety, NG selection puzzle, and mystery levels. We covered the toughest one from each. That only got 2 pages. And then we're kind of into the game marketplace, which I think I mentioned last episode as well. You really saw it a lot in UK magazines, but you're still seeing it in American magazines at this point where, you know, as you'll notice, we haven't seen as many ads in the back half of the magazine, which was normal. Most of the ads were in the front half of the magazine. But you would always see sort of the marketplace ads in the end. And, you know, it was, again, before the internet was huge, there were still info lines to order video games, especially import games, because we just weren't quite as global then as we were. GameCave.com. I'm pretty sure I ordered something from there at one point in my life. And Chips and Bits, I definitely ordered from during my lifetime. Also missed this stuff. So the game over for December is Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, which is one of my favorite games ever. Saddest moment when Jessica cries. Happiest moment when Null cries. Aww. An epic love story comes to an end. After defeating the Magic Emperor for the last time, the group of heroes decides it's up to Alex to save his one true love from the clutches of evil. Even though she impedes his advances, deep down Luna feels something is familiar about this hero in the dragon armor. A familiar tune will completely break the spell. So you just use your ocarina or your harp, depending on which version of the game you're playing. Upon reaching the goddess pedestal, Alex stands his ground even in the face of Althena's threats. Luna is, of course, Althena. Alex demands that Luna return with him to Berg so the two of them may go back to the life they once enjoyed. Luna explains that if she leaves the goddess tower, the world of Luna may cease to exist. Alex refuses to believe. He knows this is not their destiny. Entering the light, Alex begs Luna to take his hand. After some hesitation, Luna realizes what she truly wants to do. The weight of the world is lifted from her shoulders as she embraces her one true love. Break out the champagne. The goddess tower crashes to the sea and ends the joyous reunion. Many fish probably die. We'll never know. Thought of losing Alex and Luna is too much even for the emotionally strong Jessica to bear. Even wisecracking Null is overcome with sadness at the loss of his friends. Suddenly the sky begins to clear. The world of Luna is reborn. Alex and Luna appear before their friends as if by magic. They are both alive and safe. Null's either very happy or someone just lit his rear end on fire. That's a weird thing to say. Luna is her old self again. Too bad she lost that hot little outfit. A tearful reunion ensues. Alex is congratulated by the other heroes of Lunar. And lo, they all lived happily ever after. Be sure to stick around for the hilarious outtakes. And then guess the game ending and win your own Expert Gamer t-shirt. 3 strikes and you're out. I believe this is Command and Conquer Third Strike, maybe is the name. I think it's Command and Conquer game anyway. And that's it. We're near the end now. Again, there's videogames.com. I mentioned that last episode, that great URL that they gave up for some reason. Advertiser index, of course, this was in all magazines where you have a list of the advertisers that were in the magazine and what pages you could find those ads on. Funcoland Superstore, I've mentioned that before as well. I used to go in there with like $100 and come out with a armful of cartridge games. Those were the days. Next month in Expert Gamer, here's your New Year's resolution. Buy the next issue of Expert Gamer. Why? because we'll have the most comprehensive strategies on 2 of the biggest games of the year. Donkey Kong 64, assuming it shows up on time. You never can tell with those wily guys at Nintendo. And Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, which was my strategy guide. But the action doesn't stop there. We'll also have guides for Turok Rage Wars, Evolution, the first RPG for Dreamcast, Vandal Hearts 2, WrestleMania 2000, Sega Rally 2, also mine. Oh man, did I do 2? Did I do 2 strategy guides for the next episode? Next issue? What a slave driver John was. And lots more. Watch for it. Yep. EGM. Armored Core 2 from Software. That was their series. That was they just kept releasing those games for years and years. From Software, of course, now Souls developers. Donkey Kong 64, terrible game. Official US PlayStation Magazine. Stars. And another Laura. GExpress.com, McVan's Video Games. Don't know. This was a thing too. And I don't know what the reason was, but I think it was once a year we had to post this in an issue of every magazine. And so it's like the name of it's a legal, I don't know what, to be honest, and I forget what this is called. But yeah, it's a statement of ownership, management, and circulation. So we had to publish like our circulation numbers. So like there's our publication number, the filing date, number of issues per year, subscription price, who the contact person was. Like this was all published publicly. Dale Strang. And there's like Dan Leahy, who was the managing editor. I think somewhere along here, yeah, here we go. This is kind of cool. So total number of copies net press run, 391,419. Average number of copies of each issue. So number of copies of single issue published nearest to filing date, which would have been, I don't know. I mean, it might have been this issue. 396,300. So, sorry, these are hard to read. Pad requested outside country mail. I don't know what that means. Sales through dealers and carriers, which are street vendors, counter sales, and other non-USPS paid distribution. So that would be newsstand sales, 124,674, 128,900. So pretty high amount. Oh, these must be subscription numbers. So our subscription numbers were about 75,000, and our sell-through numbers were about 125 to 230,000. Total paid and or requested circulation. So 200,000. There's a lot of leftover issues each month, I assume. Total free distribution, 5 to 7,000. Total distribution, 205 to 212,000. Total sum. Crazy. Percent paid and or requested, 97%. I don't remember the reason why these, and I wish I'd noticed this the first time I looked through this, because I remember there was something that we had to run once a year. And I don't know what the rule is behind that, but I should look that up. I wish I'd looked it up for this video. There you go, some insight into numbers there. Another Interact thing. It's basically Game Shark. Yeah, Sharkwire Online. So Game Shark, you go online and download codes and find codes on the interwebs. And then we've got the back, which is almost always a Capcom ad. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. How fitting for this issue. Just days after surviving the grisly disaster at the Mansion Lab, Jill Valentine resigns from STARS and attempts to escape a nightmarish city in ruins. Trapped in a town crawling with hordes of flesh-eating zombies, hideous mutants, and a relentless new nemesis, she must rely on cunning and brute force to stay alive. What she soon discovers is that the evil created by Umbrella Corporation's biotech terror is even more horrifying than she ever imagined. And that was it. Expert Gamer number 66, I'm sorry. Expert Gamer number 66, December of 1999. The first issue that came out around the time I was moving to Chicago to start my career in the games press in a real way. Look at this illustration by Alex Garner. I didn't notice that the first time. And my second walkthrough for, again, another RPG. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's been lengthy. I appreciate if you've hung around and watched this. I'm doing my best to make reading an old strategy guide magazine interesting. I think it'll be more interesting once we get to my UGM days. But either way, yes, I hope you enjoyed this, especially how long you've waited for this new episode to happen. Hopefully the next one will not take quite as long. Expert Gamer number 67, which apparently I did Sega Rally 2 and Tomb Raider for. So I hope to see you then. Again, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the video. Please leave messages in the chat below. I would love to read your comments and hear what you think of these, or any memories you have of reading Expert Gamer, or maybe this issue in particular, or how amazing and how my Grandia strategy guide got you through Grandia for the first time, because I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of people, based on the sales numbers in the back of this issue, that were helped through Grandia with my amazing strategy guide, right? Right. Okay. Remember to check out Generation 16, check out Twitch TV/Seward, and check out Player One Podcast. Again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful time, and I'll see you next issue of Expert Gamer. Goodbye.